Hey friend, welcome to my podcast, The Fit Soul. I'm your host, Amy Ramsey. In this podcast, we will be discussing soul-filled strategies to unleash your confidence, increase your energy, and all the things healthy lifestyle. If you're a Christian woman who is ready to reach your God-given potential, walk worthy of your calling with abundant joy and energy, girlfriend, you are in the right spot. I mean, you only have one life to live. You might as well maximize it. Buckle in, and thanks for listening. Hello, and welcome back to the Fit Soul podcast. I am so grateful and delighted that you are here. I am your host, Amy Ramsey, and today I am really excited to talk about a topic that will help you in any area of your life that you feel stuck or you feel like you're struggling. It could be with your health. It could be with mindsets. It could be like in your spiritual life. Maybe it's in relationships. You're not showing up authentically. I'm going to give you some tools today to help you identify what area of your life you need to move forward in and to live authentically and to live intentionally. I know so many women who want to have that freedom in their life and to thrive and to get off the emotional roller coaster that keeps them in stinking cycles and create more self-discipline in their life and to deal with life's stressors in a healthy way instead of relying on food or shopping or excessive scrolling or wine or alcohol or whatever, fill in the blank. I know that so many of the women that I talk to, they want true health. They want vitality as a lifestyle, but they struggle with staying committed long enough to see a lasting difference. And I know that for me in my own life, it has been a process of figuring out how do I actually have true change. And so what I'm going to talk about today and it's over the next few weeks is going to be more of that advanced behavior change, but how to get from where you are now, wherever you are stuck, to that next level up. And I want you to be thinking about right now, what areas are you stuck? Where is it that you're not creating that consistent change in your life and you find that you are frustrated? So let's talk a little bit about the difference between these two. And I want to create for you in your mind, I want you to kind of think about two words. I'm going to give you two words. The first one is thriving. Thriving. And I love what thriving means. It means flourishing. That's always kind of a hard word for me to say. Flourishing. Despite of obstacles that can even arise. Thriving means that you are flourishing and resilient. So I want you to have this image of what thriving looks like to you, whether it's a beautiful, robust tree that is big and it has deep, deep, deep roots, versus the word surviving. So surviving doesn't necessarily mean survival mode. Maybe it means defaulted. Maybe for you, it means just less than what you know you can be, some sort of autopilot area of your life. And you're not creating the consistent change that you want. Before I go too much further, I want to lay a little bit of a foundation of my own life and how implementing these strategies, and I had to work hard to find them. It became my mission on how to break free from some of the things that were holding me back, that were keeping me stuck. And I'm celebrating, I can't believe it, but I'm celebrating 15 years of leaving an abusive, dangerous, violent marriage. 15 years ago, I took my two kids in the middle of the night on a train, and we went from North Carolina down to New Orleans, Louisiana. I was scared to death, and I had a little boy with autism and an angry teenager at the time, and $1,200 to my name. No place to live. I was homeless, and I didn't even have a car. What I left with was literally each of us grabbed what I could in a suitcase, and we left. It was frightening. And starting over was frightening. I was so scared. But what took me longer to overcome, the longest thing that it took me to overcome to find freedom was in my mind. And a lot of that is common from traumatic experiences. And so I did do a lot of coaching. I want to recommend, therapy. And I do want to recommend, if you have been in trauma, and especially long-standing trauma, big T or maybe even little t trauma, that therapy is great. Counseling is great. But there were areas in my life that I just still stayed stuck, where fear bullied me. The narratives that I played in my mind were not the things that now I understand. It was identity based for me. I never felt good enough or worthy enough or smart enough to do anything. I didn't understand healthy boundaries in relationships. I definitely didn't show up authentically. And there were parts of me that didn't even know that I wasn't, if that makes sense. There were parts of me that didn't even understand, where I was so fearful of hurting someone's feelings, or always wanting to be the chameleon, always wanting to please people in the relationships, that I would not even value my own time and energy. I would put everybody else's above it. Gosh, that one thing alone kept me stuck. It kept me stuck in patterns of trying to earn my worth. It kept me stuck in patterns of, well, if I volunteer, or if I'm working at the church, and if I'm serving in these capacities, then I am worthy. And I'm trying to earn my worth. If I do enough good, I guess. And I know that we know from just even saying that, you can listen to this and go, oh yeah, there's no way. But are you doing that? Let me just ask. Is there any part of you that feels like to show up in life, if you do this and this and this, then you feel better about yourself? And that's just a place of unworthiness. When we really understand our identity, back to that identity piece of who I am is who God says that I am. And there's nothing I can do to earn it or to have even more love from Him. Then once we understand that, then we can let go that idea that I have to do this to earn my worth. That is exhausting. If there's any part of you that is hearing that, I want you to hear that that is more of a survival mode. I want you to think about the two words, thriving and transformed, or surviving and stuck. Okay? Now, it's quite possible, and it probably is realistic for you to think that you are killing it in certain areas of your life, but there's certain areas that you're stuck in. And what we want to address today are the areas that you are stuck in. Part of high performance coaching is an overall sense of well-being and I take it as a Christian high performance coach. I take it from a spiritual level first, kind of that inside out work, and then soul level, which you can kind of think about that from the essence of who you are, your personality, your emotions, your mindsets. That's going to be housed in your soul. And then your physical well-being. So basically how you are showing up for, number one, the Lord in this life, for yourself and for others in a sense of well-being. So you can be crushing it in certain areas of your life, but still there may be this pocket where you know you need to level up and you know you need to get some freedom in. So that's the area that I want you to think about. So when I was so stuck in my life, you could have looked at my health and gone, girl, you are crushing it. Like my health, my physical health and exercise and eating on point, like way beyond on point. So I was like killing it in that. But emotionally, man, I was struggling. Wow. But I didn't even know how much I was struggling. All I knew is that finally I got to a point to where I didn't want that anymore. I didn't know that I was worthy of anything more than that. And so when we start to look at ourselves in the light of how God sees us, and that his goodness is chasing after me, his love for me is what draws us to him. His love for us is what draws us to him. When we understand that God is a wonderful, good God, and he created me with certain gifts and skills and abilities. And the more that I shine through that authentically and optimize this woman that he loves, his royal daughter, then the more that I can point others to him. When I have got my identity and my alignment, and I'm in alignment with him and his purpose, this transformation, this is what God promises us in the Bible, that we can be transformed by the renewing of our mind and not conformed to the patterns of this world. And so be thinking about these patterns. So as we start to think about what does that transformed person look like? Well, I want to share with you a couple of things. Number one is that they're going to operate from a place of awareness. And so as you're thinking about this, let me just, in your mind, because I really want you to find value in this podcast, is think emotionally, think mentally, think physically, think spiritually, okay? Think about those 4 areas of your life and transformation in those 4 areas moving forward, okay? Number 1 is awareness. We have to have awareness. That thriving woman has an awareness around this. And I just want to say to you right now that God wants you to experience an exceptional life He's created for you. That doesn't mean that everything goes well. I can promise you everything won't go well. But He says that He came to give us life and life to the full, an abundant life. It's available for all of us. So access that part of your life in all areas. Don't stop until you get there, because this is God's plan. This is God's will for you. Jesus said this. And for us to do that, we have to realize, number 1, I have to be aware of this. I have to be aware. Sometimes life can beat us down and we don't even realize, hey, this is available to me. So anything less than that is beneath you. So I just want to call you forth and call you higher. If you've settled for anything less than that in your life, maybe the world's beat you down, or maybe you've been sick for a while. And when we're sick, whether it's emotionally or physically, mentally, after a while, it's hard to remember the goodness of God. And so when we are in that defaulted surviving lifestyle, defaulted mode, here's some indicators of it. Somebody that's surviving, or some area of your life that you're surviving, you're bullied by your fear. I was there. I was so bullied by my fear. I let a narrative in my mind beat the crap out of me all the time. Another indicator of surviving, and just bring awareness to this, is being a procrastinator. You have a fear of failure. The perfectionism in you is scared to start messy. What are people going to think? And you got some stuff that you want to do, but you're scared to start. Whereas someone who is thriving is courageous to go ahead and take messy action. It's operating from a place of love. We talked about being bullied by fear or operating from love. Perfect love casts out all fear. And when we have that kind of as the operating system of our mind, we'll try new things. We'll incorporate courage. I talk about 6 habits that we need for positive life outcomes, which is what I want you to have. And that's energy and courage and productivity, focus, stewardship, and impact. Those 6 habits. So this is one of those to try, is that courageousness. Someone who is thriving is strong emotionally, mentally. They're resilient and they're able to bounce back from life. But someone who's surviving is weak mentally or emotionally. Circumstances happen and they find themselves going through a beat up cycle or a negative pattern, and they fall off of the wagon altogether. And it takes them a long time to get back up. And there's this stop and start because there's not that resiliency there. What I want to encourage you is that as you start to bring awareness to this, you can start to grow these areas in your life. Join me next week back on the podcast because we're going to kind of pick this up from there because I want to give you the tools. That's what I had to learn the most when I learned that I could actually control my thoughts, and that actually I had that I bore that responsibility, and that I could use neuroscience and rewire the negative narratives that played on repeat in my life. Oh my gosh, it changed my life. And that's why I'm so passionate to share this with you, because this is available for anyone. God made our brains so beautifully. Oh, they're exceptional. They're remarkable. And they want to keep us safe and comfortable. And the Lord tells us over and over again to be strong and to take courage and to take our thoughts captive. And so any thoughts that you have, any narratives that you have, any places in your mind where it is taking you down a path, and you've got patterns of this in your life of just feeling not strong enough, not enough. I just want to encourage you that you can do the work and change your life with this. If you change your thoughts, you can change your actions. And all of that is in our agency, the things that we can control. There's so many things in our lives that we can't control. And so when we understand what we have agency over, it's empowering. And so I want to empower you right now that you have agency over your thoughts. You have agency over your emotions. It takes work. It takes work to get there. But the more you understand the work, and this is what I do, of course, in my coaching and in my mentorship, is these exact things. So I just wanted to say that. So that first step that we've got here is just that awareness, bringing awareness to your life, to these things of thriving versus surviving, and that you've got agency. It's that ability to consistently take that action forward. Another thing about a thriving life is it's intentional. It's an intentional lifestyle. It's purposeful, purpose-filled, if you will. And when you think about surviving is more of an autopilot lifestyle. Super easy to think about with our health and wellness, right? When we are dialed in, we're mindful of what we're eating, we're mindful of how often we're moving, we're kind of keeping up with our sleep. But when we're on autopilot, we're not even aware of the foods that we're throwing in our mouth, or even how much caffeine we're consuming in our health. That happens all the time. It happens in our mind, what our thoughts are, and then our behaviors. It is literally, we're just doing things on autopilot. And we lack that awareness. We lack that intentionality. We lack that purpose. And I'm convinced that the biggest problem here is a busy and distracted lifestyle. Busy and distracted. Busy, not productive. Busy doing things that aren't moving the needle forward. We live in an epidemic of addictions, namely our phones, right? We're addicted to them. We're addicted to the notifications. We're addicted to the dopamine release that we get from our phones. We're not doing the things that are purposeful and moving life forward. And it keeps us stuck. And also, we don't have a positive life outcome when we're stuck there. You know that feeling. You feel bad about yourself when you've been on social media too long. You feel bad about yourself for a lot of reasons. And one of which is it just wastes time. And we feel guilty when we're not being a good steward of our time. It's just a natural human response. But the phone is meant to keep us on it, to keep us on our devices. So that awareness and that agency, again, it's difficult. But a busy and distracted lifestyle is opposite of that thriving lifestyle. Here's a couple of other things that I just want you to, as you're doing kind of an assessment of thriving versus surviving, is how is your emotional health? Are you peaceful? Grateful, joyful? Those are indicators of thriving. And those are things that are biblical, that the scripture tells us that we can have no matter our circumstances. The opposite of that would be a mind that's ridden with anxiety, maybe discontented. Also, worried, ungrateful. All of that is going to lend towards that defaulted, surviving, stuck self, and will not help you move forward. A couple of other things that I just kind of want to bring to attention here, because as you start to bring awareness to this and start to understand, hey, where do I have agency? Meaning, what can I control personally? Because if you can control your thoughts. Thoughts are things. We can control, there's a lot that we can't control, but in our health, we can control how we're eating and how we're moving our body, right? So these are the things that we can control. But this is a beautiful sign of someone who is thriving. And when I started to understand this was a fruit of kind of doing the work of getting unstuck and moving forward, was to be authentic to my created design of how God made me. There was freedom in that. I was really guarded for a long time. I didn't want to be known because of the guilt and the shame that I felt. I just didn't want to be known. But what was interesting is most people didn't know that, because it wasn't that I was hiding as a recluse in my house. I had a life. However, I had mastered the art of hiding in plain sight. Now, if you can relate with this, you're probably feeling like I am reading your your diary right now. And the reason why I say that is because I get so much response from other women that actually are still in that pattern of hiding in plain sight. The fears bullying them. They don't feel worthy enough. And gosh, that alone will keep your soul shackled. That alone will keep you in that defaulted, surviving mode. And I just want to share with you, there is freedom on the other side. And this is an identity thing. This is an alignment thing. This is everything that we talk about in my Walk Worthy mentorship and in my coaching. I've got a masterclass, and I'm going to unpack this deeper. And I'll put the link in my show notes, but it's thefitsoul.com/masterclass. Get registered for that. That's coming up. When you start to experience this transformation, you don't have to hide anymore. You can be you. You can be known. You don't have to live authentically or as a chameleon. You get to be yourself and actually learn how to speak your mind and speak confidently, because what you have to say actually matters. You don't have to just agree with everybody, which is what I used to do. And it's powerful. It's really powerful. I cannot recommend that you go and do the work that it takes to get here. The last bit of this idea of thriving versus surviving is, I want you to think about this is a growth-oriented, someone who is thriving is growth and goal-oriented, okay? They see life and maybe the call of God on their life or the goals that they have in their life as something that they can obtain, in that it's not this elusive thing, that step by step I can get there. I can learn what I need to do to show up. Whereas in surviving is often a fixed mindset, or a mindset that says, wow, look at the person that's doing this and they're amazing. Like, wow, like success is some magic formula that they just got lucky and achieved, instead of a strategy and an implementation and taking action steps to get there. That maybe that fixed mindset is that I'm not worthy of it, or I'm not good enough, therefore I can't take any action and I can never become that. Whereas when you're more intentional about your goals and growth, you're taking action, which is going to be that last step. So we talked about bringing awareness, number one. Number two, agency. What can you control? And then action. We take action. And someone who is thriving is someone who is taking action. They still feel fear, but they don't let it bully them and hold them back. They don't let it become a stop sign. They feel fear and go ahead and take messy action, because that's what's required when you're learning something new. When we start to understand that me moving forward means me taking inspired action, that me taking prioritized action in the face of becoming and enjoying this journey and practicing resiliency and moving forward authentically in alignment with God's plan for me in my life, we thrive. But when we stay stuck in that surviving, defaulted mode, we self-sabotage, we are floating, it's discontented, and it keeps you stuck. And so the last part of this, so we've talked about awareness, agency, action. The last A I've got for you here to start thriving is to get assertive. One thing that I find with the women that actually move forward in their life is they become assertive with the action. They don't just keep talking about it. And they move forward. They move out of the fear. They move out of perfection. They realize that I'm just going to get started and that this is going to be a process. And that their value, their worth, their identity is not tied up in them achieving any success or any level of failures. There's something inside of each of us, it's just the way that we're created, that we actually thrive under a little bit of pressure, under a challenge. When we have to dig deeper and then we rise above, it makes us feel great on the inside. It's part of the way that we're wired. And so it really is getting out of that default mode, out of that autopilot, out of that surviving. And here's the thing. The powerful thing is when we're a believer, we get to have the Spirit lead us. This is inside out living. This is beautiful. I can't even begin. This is where your sense of purpose is. This is where you're promised joy, full joy, all peace. And it's not depending on our circumstances. It's such a beautiful, powerful place to be to have your transformation. When we are in that surviving place, in that survival mode, it is an outside-in living. It is a place where you stay stuck and struggling versus an alive and free soul. Believe me, I was stuck and struggling. I felt like my soul was shackled for so many years. And once you experience this freedom, oh my gosh, it's life-changing, transformational. That's what this is. This is about being thriving and being transformed and thriving versus stuck and surviving. So I just want to encourage you. There is so much hope for you. And it's now became my mission. It became my mission to help women discover this thriving, vibrant life that God has for them and to walk worthy of that calling that's inside of them. We need more women stepping up. We need more believers stepping up. And once you taste and see that the Lord is good and you understand some of these things, it's so powerful. So I've got that masterclass. Join me. I'm going to be unpacking this. And how do you get there? That's the thing is like, okay, Amy, that's awesome. How do I get there? I will fully unpack that in that masterclass. But what I want you to know is that this is possible. This is so possible. I'll put several links. I've got some free resources in the show notes that will actually walk you through this if you don't want to wait to that masterclass, that will walk you through this. So I highly encourage you to jump in and do that. But what I want to wrap up with this one last kind of this big idea. Being assertive in this, taking a stance, kind of like drawing a line in the sand. Like, I'm not going back. I'm moving forward at all cost. I remember the moment I did that. I'll never forget the day. And I understood that I didn't know a lot about personal development at the time. But what I did understand is that it was going to be hard and that I was going to have to do things that I didn't want to do. I was going to have to stop hiding. And I was so dang good at hiding. But I knew for me to move forward and to get out of that stuck place, I had to do things differently. And I became assertive in my own growth journey. I stopped sitting on the sidelines of my life. I took messy action and I was scared half to death. And what I learned through that process, through so many different struggles, is I learned tools that helped me go from surviving to thriving. I learned different techniques and strategies. I became so obsessed with this And then it became a divine assignment for me, is that I want to share with you, shortcut your time to get unstuck. I want to give you the tools to get unstuck, because it was certain tools that helped me. It was like I would take a step forward, and then I learned more and more about neuroscience. How do I retrain my brain? How do I overcome the fear? How do I stop the negative thought patterns? Of course, this is what I do with my one-on-one coaching. This is what I do in my Walk Worthy mentorship. All of my links are going to be in the show notes. If you're like, holy cow, I want that. That's what I want in my life. I'm going to encourage you, jump down to those show notes and just join me anywhere on the journey, because the women in that program are literally experiencing the same thing. They're growing spiritually, growing professionally, growing personally. They're busting through issues and having more thriving relationships. And they're getting realigned and living a life of priority, living a life of purpose, filled with joy, filled with peace. Oh, it's powerful. I want you to experience this too. Okay, well, that is all for today. Join me next week. I'm going to pick up the conversation and give you a framework around this that will help you understand what steps you need to take. I believe that there are 4 things that you need, and so I'm going to unpack that next week. All right, friend, have a great week, and I will come back on Friday. Remember, we have our Faith Action podcast on Friday, so I will see you same time, same place. Bye. Girlfriend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'm so honored you come back every week and that you share the Fit Soul podcast with your friends and family. Every time you share my podcast on Instagram or Facebook, I do a little happy dance. Make sure you subscribe to the Fit Soul podcast, where you'll never miss an episode. You can go to Podcast, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode release. And just know, I truly love bringing you excellent content and great guests to provide you motivation and faith inspiration to help you walk worthy. And one of the ways you can help me is to go and leave the Fit Soul podcast a review. If you have just a moment, would you please go over and leave a review for the Fit Soul podcast? Thank you again. I love you. And here is your reminder. You are worthy. Until next time. Bye-bye.